So one of the reasons you could use grafting is to save a dying plant, something that's developed root rot. In this case, you're using grafting as a last-ditch effort to save the plant, which would die normally if you'd left it the way it was. So you're going to get your alcohol and your knife, make sure it's sharp, and elastic bands, tape, or anything you're going to use to secure the scion onto the stalk. Now you want to find a nice root stock, something that is plump and juicy and growing, showing signs of fresh growth, something that is actively growing. Some people actually soak their cactus in fertilizer 24 hours beforehand just to make sure their cactus is really pumped up and juicy and ready to go. So I usually like to take a bigger portion just to make sure that I can later root that. I've actually heard people say that if the cutting that you're making is has at least two areoles, then it has a better chance of rooting. You want to make sure that it's straight, and as you could see there, when I cut the cactus, I tried to not have too much of a sawing motion, just cutting it straight through. And again, you just want to keep your knife edge clean between cuts just so that you're not infecting anything. So if you look closely here, you'll see what I was talking about earlier during the presentation. The vascular ring is right in the middle there, and what you want to do is you want to align the vascular ring of the scion with the vascular ring of the rootstock and just offsetting them a little bit just so that they overlap. So right now we're going to be removing as much of this rotted flesh as we can. So we'll do it in stages just so that we don't remove too much. I usually try to go slow just so that there's, obviously I'd rather not cut more than I need to. So let's see what's going on in here. Oh yeah, so you can see that there's quite a bit of, I'm not sure what exactly this is called, but you can see that it's going up into it and it's beginning to infect part of that vascular ring. And I'm not 100% sure if even at this stage, if it's too far gone, that maybe the graft won't take and maybe this rot will continue, but at least we're trying. It never hurts to try, right? So, but what I just cut away, we're going to have to cut away some more, just so that we're looking for a nice clean flesh, so that it gives it a nice clean start, so that it doesn't have that rot. You want to get rid of as much of that rot as you can. Okay, so you can see this is much cleaner now. Cut away that rotting flesh there, and this is much better. I mean, we could cut a little bit more off. You can see a little bit there, but it's definitely much better than the last slice. You can see, I mean, it's gone pretty deep in there. So let's see what we can do. Who knows? So you got to make sure your knife is clean in between cuts so that you don't contaminate the new clean cut with the whatever rot that was. In this case, there's a little bit of rot, so we have to make sure that it doesn't contaminate the next slice, and we just try to take away a little bit more, and it's a little bit better. Yeah, it's a little bit better. I think that's the best we're going to get out of this. I don't want to cut away too much. There's a little bit of a red dot, if you can see it there. But who knows, maybe the cactus is able to fight that. I'm not sure. We'll see. We'll give it a try. We'll use this as our scion. So the next thing I'm going to want to do is cut around the edge, so that when the scion dries, that the edge doesn't dry out and push the scion off of the rootstock. So at around a 45-degree angle, you're going to want to go around the whole cactus. This one is a little bit harder because of how it has these little spines around the pretty much the whole surface, so those kind of get in the way in my case. But just try to do your best just to go around and remove some of that, just so that it doesn't make it pop off once it dries. Now back at the stalk, what I'm going to be doing now is removing these edges here. It's called chamfering, or to chamfer the edges. So basically what that means is just cutting the edges at an angle, 45-degree angle, just to remove some of that flesh there that when it dries and calluses could potentially force the scion up and off of itself. So just going around the whole thing, just cutting off all the edges and just cleaning it up so that when it dries it doesn't force the scion off. So now you can start thinking about where the scion is going to go and how it's going to line up with the vascular ring on the stalk. You can start looking for those two and matching them up. But before you do that, you're going to want to take a clean slice off both the scion and the stalk, just so that everything is nice and fresh, so that the juices are flowing and it's not dried up. Doesn't have to be a thick slice, just a very thin slice, just to make sure it's fresh. Get in there, there you go. Pop it on, give it a light squeeze. You can rotate it a little bit just to make sure there's no air. And Bob's your uncle. I'm not sure if you can see from here, but you can kind of see where the ring is, and the ring of the scion should in this case be overlapping the ring of the stalk, just a little bit off center, but yeah, hopefully that'll take. So now we're going to want to quickly get some elastic bands and put those on top of the scion so that it is securely in place and pushed down into the stalk, so that the fluids from the stalk can freely flow into the scion and provide moisture and nutrients to help it grow and keep it alive. One of my favorite parts of grafting cacti is actually kind of weird. I actually learned about it from one of our members at the club, Dalibor. It's a aluminum powder that you can use to help seal up the open wound on the stalk cacti. You can also use sulfur as well. But I kind of like the space age look of the aluminum, and it makes me feel like the cacti is kind of like me when I put on deodorant, so the deodorant keeps me from leaking. Here I can put it on my cacti, and together, in some way we're connected. So that's pretty much it for the grafting portion. At this point some people would stop at that and just leave the cacti just the way it is. It's funny that it's actually cacti now. It was a cactus, but now it's cacti. Anyway, you can also put a little bit of saran wrap on to the grafted section just to help retain some moisture and slow the drying process, to give the scion a little bit of a head start in adapting to its new environment. And definitely hang on to the part that you chopped off at the beginning. You can put that on some soil and it'll definitely root, and you can use that in the future. I just wanted to show you one last thing. It's actually the first thing I've ever grafted. This here is a turbinocarpus that thanks to actually Dalibor and his wonderful grafting session. And this was a few years ago now. I can't say for certain if this is the actual scion that I grafted, or if Dalibor was just too nice to tell me that what I had done had failed and had given me another one that he did himself. But anyway, I've been trying to take care of it, and here it is. A few years after, that's what it looks like. Finally, I wanted to show you this Lophophora that I had grafted myself. So this is the first thing I ever grafted on my own. So I'm pretty happy that this succeeded, and I think this is probably from around 2012, 13, something around that time. You can see the rooting, the rootstock there. Yeah, I mean, it's doing pretty well. The cool thing about all the pups that come off of these grafted cacti is that you can always take the pups and then graft them again. So it's kind of cool. I kind of like the way it looks. I like coming up to it and squeezing it every once in a while just to make sure it's got enough water, that it's doing well. But yeah, that's pretty much it. One of my oldest cacti. Another thing that's worth mentioning about the cacti that we just grafted is that it's good if it's out of the sun, out of direct sunlight, somewhere where it can take its time to recuperate. Here you can also see your typical Gymnocalycium grafted cactus. This is something you'd normally typically see at Home Depot. This isn't, I didn't graft this one, but hey, maybe this is what, if you saw this yourself, maybe it inspired you to get into grafting. You know, maybe it all started with this guy. In any case, I hope you enjoyed this demonstration, that hopefully you learned something and were inspired on your own cacti grafting adventure. I wish you lots and lots of cactus grafting success, and thank you for listening.